Shut up and sit down.
Hello, welcome to the channel. This is my first video. I'm going to be starting to make content about the Blues and their season. We'll see if later on I want to work on more sports or anything else. As you can tell, I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. I love paying attention to all sports. The nerdy side of it is really what I enjoy. I like looking at stats, seeing if I can predict things. I do a little bit of sports betting. I'm happy to answer questions about that stuff. As you can tell, I'm a big Blues fan. Interestingly enough, I've lived in the St. Louis area for about 10 years now. Grew up in small town Illinois. But I haven't really been a huge hockey fan until about 2015. 2015 happened, and I went to my first Blues game. It was a Blues versus Ducks game. I sat right behind the glass, got to see a Tarasenko goal, saw Ott fight twice, which was insane. Overall, good game. Still vivid memories. I got a Shattenkirk bobblehead, I'm pretty sure, that night. I'm not 100% on that one, but I've been with the team for some time, like before the championship, so I feel good about that. I'm wearing possibly my favorite jersey they've ever done. That Winter Classic jersey is just smooth, and I wish more teams would do like the cream kind of color. But this right here is a season preview. We're going to take a look and see what is going to happen with the season. I'll also do a video of like what I expect the prospects list kind of looking like, and if we'll see any of them this season. We'll start by looking at the lines. Right now in the preseason, things have been looking pretty good for the Blues. They're winning a lot. They're mixing and matching. Chief Berube is getting an idea of what he wants to run. And they're playing not necessarily high offense, but steady offense and strong defense, which is kind of the Blues way nowadays, especially under Berube. If you're looking at what the internet says, on the first line you've got, on the right wing, Buchnevich, at center, Thomas, and at right wing, Tarasenko. What I think the first line is going to be coming at the beginning of the season is probably going to be Buchnevich, O'Reilly, and Tarasenko. I think they'll be great. I do kind of want to see a return of the Russian line, maybe putting Tarasenko and Buchnevich with Barbashev, moving up Kyrou and Thomas with O'Reilly, or maybe Kyrou and Sad with O'Reilly. But I think I'd rather see this line to start the year. Buch, O'Reilly, Tarasenko. It's just a matter of fact. It's nothing on Thomas. Thomas is a great player. He just signed the contract. Depending on what O'Reilly does, he'll be the next captain of the team. But O'Reilly's our number one center. He has the face-off percentage, and he's just a captain of all. You want him out there at the very beginning of the game. Plus, you kind of want to have Thomas out there on the blistering second line. I call it the Zoomies line. Line 2. The second line, according to the internet, will have on left wing Sad, center O'Reilly, right wing Kyrou. They got Sad and Kyrou right, probably. Sad and Kyrou are absolute shooters, and that's what you want on your second line. You want to be effective on offense. Your first line is your all-around, probably best line. Second line, offensive first. Third line, defensive first, but with offensive upside. And fourth line is a shutdown line type of thing. I think you're going to see Sad, Thomas, and Kyrou, just because this is the Zoomy line. Sad's got to keep up with the kids, but you're going to have Sad coming in from the left, unsuspecting as everyone's watching Thomas and Kyrou zoom in. And if they aren't going to make it, they can pass it to the outside, and he'll probably kick it in. Add that with the second pair, which is probably going to be Krug and Folk. That's going to be a terrifying line to go against, no matter what. On the third line, you've got, on the internet, Neighbors, Shin, and Brown. I like this line. I do like the internet's line. I think Neighbors and Brown working together is going to be good. They're young. If you can build that chemistry, they may be line mates for years to come. Shin is a solid team player. He knows the plays. He knows what he's doing. He drives the puck. He'll punch someone in the face. So he is a great choice for center on the third line. I think they have that right. I think Neighbors will probably be that starting lineup in that first game on left wing, but I could also see them going with Walker and giving Neighbors a few more reps in the AHL to get his kind of mind going. Because he wasn't in the AHL last year. He was in the OHL, which, playing for the Edmonton Oil Kings, he won, as captain, their championship. He did a great job. Got a ridiculous beard. On the right side, you're probably going to see Achari or Toropchenko. I would probably put Achari in this line, just because Toropchenko strikes me as more of a shutdown guy than Achari, but either one you can go with. Line 4. The internet says Barbashev, Achari, Kostin. Left wing, center, right wing. I think you're going to see Brown on the left wing here. You might see Kostin play a little bit. Brown still has a few more years and he can be put down in AHL. We need to know what we have with Kostin this year. We got to know. He's up on his contract. He's young, but he's got some time in the big leagues, but he just hasn't really had that strike factor yet. So he'll definitely get some reps on that fourth line. Maybe even see a few reps on the second line if he proves to be a good shooter. But you might see a mix of Brown and Kostin. Center, Barbashev all the way. He's a great shutdown. If he's not going to be part of a Russian line, this is who I want. If we are going to see a Russian line, we're going to see Shin probably down here on the fourth line, and the Russian line being kind of like a third line type thing, which would work. But I think you'll see Barbashev start the year at fourth line center. As far as right wing goes, whoever doesn't get the third line of Achari and Toropchenko will get down here. I suspect it'll be Toropchenko, just because he has a little more upside in the fourth line than Achari does. And I loved seeing Toropchenko play in the playoffs last year. He did a great job. I think we've got a great kid on our hands. To defense. You have defensive pair 1. Internet's saying Krug and Folk. And I think that will be a line. I just think that's going to be our second line. I think you're going to have a more effective offensive second line with the kid line and Sad. We might even call it the Sad Boy line. We'll see if that catches on. I think your first line is going to be Parayko and Leddy. It just is. You've got too much defensive force with those two with offensive upside. They're your probably best match. Leddy plays so well with Parayko that it's hard to tear him apart. I would love to see Krug and Parayko go out there and be our first line. I think that's our best pair right there. But I think you see Leddy and Parayko playing with each other, switching out Krug and Leddy occasionally. Same thing with second line, kind of diving into that now. You're going to see a Krug and Folk line for most of it, and a switch occasionally from Krug and Leddy, depending on what the situation calls for, if we need more offense or defense. Our third line, your shutdown pair, you're going to see Mikkola and Bortuzzo until Scandella gets back. I know. St. Louis seems to have a vendetta against Scandella. Scandella has upside. He does. I know. You don't want to hear that, but he does. Number 6 is good when we use him correctly. The issue is we don't always use him correctly. So, you're going to see Mikkola and Scandella switch off games. Probably get 3 or 4 games in, switch. 3 or 4 games in, switch. One gets hurt, perfect. You've already got your 7th D lined up and working with Bordeaux. Bordeaux is going to stay on that line. He is proven to be an effective shutdown D-man. Not the best, but not the worst. And everyone loves Bordeaux. It's hard to not like Bordeaux. The only thing that would be positive about Scandella if he didn't play, I mean, we're paying over $3 million a year. He better be playing. If not, he needs to get on the LTIR, give us a little cap space. That's the only thing that can happen. So that's a look at our roster and what I think the lines are going to look like. The other thing we want to talk about in the season preview is the end of season. At the end of the season, we've got a few UFAs that are coming up. O'Reilly's the big one. I think you're going to see him get an extension, probably similar price of $7.5 to $8 million a year. Probably not a huge extension, maybe like 5 years. He's 31. He's going to constantly score you 20 goals and probably get 40 assists. He's a 60 to 70 point guy and an effective center. He's the captain. And it's not like he's been a captain for a long time, it's time to move on. He's only been a captain for a few years. I don't see how we don't get him the extension. And also, I think it'd be a big failure if we don't get him the extension. Because I would have preferred to see Tarasenko be the captain at the time. Now they know he wants to trade. It's a little different, but still. If you're going to wear the C, I assume you're going to make the extension. And O'Reilly is, on that peak, that plateau part of his career most likely. It can go up more, but it's more likely to go down. For that, I think he's going to sign a $7.5, $8 million contract for about 3 to 5 years. Now, Tarasenko, 91. I love this guy. He was my first jersey up here. This was before he was wearing the A. And I just love the guy. He played with so much passion. I loved watching it. I bought the NHL game when he was on the cover, even though I knew it wasn't going to change as a game. I just needed to have him on the cover. And, I hate to be the one to say it, but he's probably getting traded this year. Now, I know he wanted to trade last year, and he's an effective player. I mean, he's probably looking at another 30-goal, 30-assist year, but he's making 7.5. He wants a trade. And if we're going to afford O'Reilly and the new contracts of Kyrou and Thomas, he's probably going to be the guy to go. If we don't trade him, we're going to lose him at the end of the year. I'd rather get some draft picks for him, probably like a 2nd and 5th rounder, something like that. If we try to trade him at the middle of the year, maybe we get an effective D-man or a good third liner and a draft pick, like a 3rd or a 4th. But even with how good he was last year, I don't think you're getting a 1st-round pick for him. Just because people say he had one good year, he was injured for 2 whole years, can we really trust him? I think you can. I think Tarasenko would be amazing again this year, and I would love to see him re-sign. Especially knowing because of that stuff, we could probably have him go for a $6 to $5 million deal for several years. But I just don't think he wants to play here. I think he's going to play hard because that's what he does. But I don't think he wants to play here. Another one of our UFAs is Barbashev. Now, he's young. He's 26. He's actually younger than I am, which feels bad. He's getting right now about 2.25 mil. He's usually going to score in the range of 15 goals and 20 assists, 45 to 50 point guy. Solid 3rd line, 4th line guy. And he doesn't just play center. He can play wing. I think he is worth extending, but probably not a huge extension. If we do, it's probably going to be around the 3 to 3.5 million range, and probably only for like 3 to 5 years. Achari signed a 1-year deal. He's not going to get an extension. That's just not how it's going to happen. What they're going to do is they're going to look at how the year goes. If they like the way he's playing, by the end of the year, he'll probably get a 2 to 3 year deal. I think, he's 30 years old, so he's still got plenty of going in him. But he's he hasn't played very much in the last couple of years. He hasn't been a regular in the lineup, so he's a 15 to 20 point player. Now, solid time in the lineup. I think he could be a 20 to 30 point player if he's on the right line. But I don't think he's going to sit on a 2nd or 1st line and score all the time. For that, if he does well, as a third or fourth liner this year. I think he'll probably get a 1 to 2 year contract for same at 1.25 or 1.5 mil. Another person who just signed this year for a 1 year deal was Levo or Levo. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, so please correct me in the comments. But he signed a league min deal. He's only 29. I don't think you'll see him starting in the lineup. He's probably just going to be a big depth piece. If he gets regular playing time, he's a fourth liner, 10-point player. He's probably going to be a pretty good defensive depth piece for a forward. If he does end up signing again, it'll probably be another league min deal. But I don't think he'll sign with us again next year. The defensive side of everything, Mikkola, his contract is up at the end of this year. He's only 26, got a lot of his prime ahead of him. He's only 26, he's got his prime ahead of him. He's making about $1.9 million. He's a good upside player. Right now he's a third pair. He could be a second pair, first pair if he gets really good player. He's a big guy, right? I think he will get extended. We're probably going to see about, with his age, 5-7 years, 3 to 3.5 million a year. That's what I assume he'll sign for. As far as goalies go, at the end of the year, Greiss will be done. He's 36, 1.25 million. He's a good backup. He's got a save average of about 908. I don't think he gets extended. He's kind of a placeholder till Hofer is ready. And my hope is he doesn't have to go into games very much. Binnington and Greiss aren't going to be a 1A, 1B. It's a Binnington net until Greiss has to step in. Binnington will get probably 4 or 5 games, and then Greiss will get a game, just to give Binnington a break. Or whenever we play Arizona or Philly. RFAs, we've got Logan Brown, St. Louis native. He's only 24. Right now he's making league min. It's kind of unknown, right? He's like an unknown talent. We know he has some upside, right? He is about a 10-point a year player, a good fourth liner. He can go to arbitration. I hope it doesn't go that way. It's one of those things where if he goes to arbitration, he's probably going to make 1.25 mil. Probably. So why not just give him that, right? Give him the 1.25 a year. Sign him for a good 3 to 4 years. Find out what you have with him. And then you can make decisions when he's hitting his prime. The other RFA is Toropchenko. I love Toropchenko. I mean, this kid impressed the hell out of me during the playoffs. I went to 2 games, one against Minnesota, one against the Avs. We lost both of them. But it was enjoyable. I know, I'm not allowed to go to playoff games anymore. He is a big son of gun. Right? He's got a lot of weight to him. He's only 23. He's very defensively forward, which is good. He's going to be a great third to fourth liner. I think he'll get a good old contract, 5 to 6 years, $2.5 to $3 million a year. That's what I expect him to sign because I think he's got the goods. We'll see probably around near the halfway point. We'll see probably around the halfway point of the year. Now, I didn't know this, so you may not know this, but Pitlick is a PTO for us. I don't think he's going to sign. I just don't think we have the money to afford him. Although we do have a roster spot, I think that roster spot's going to belong to Neighbors. Pitlick only had 5 points last year in 39 games. His playoff stats aren't all that impressive. So I don't think he'll end up signing. If he does, it'll be a league min deal. But we'll see. So I want to take a minute to talk about what our prospect pool looks like. I'm only going to mention a few of the names. I'm not going to look at all of them just because I don't think it makes any sense for us to go and mark down, oh, this 29-year-old who's been an AHLer for all of his career, let's look at him. No, I want to look at the people who I think probably will break into the NHL at some point either this year or in the coming years. We're going to start with probably my favorite prospect, Jake Neighbors. Now, I think he's going to play this year. He's very good. He just led a team as the captain in the WHL, the Edmonton Oil Kings, to a championship. So he's got that caliber of player in him. He had a wonderful playoffs. He had 17 points, and he's a playmaker. He's not necessarily a big shooter, doesn't have a ton of goals, but he gets the assists. And on the second line or third line, that's going to be beautiful. Imagine one day you get a Neighbors, Thomas, Kyrou line. That's going to be a fast offensive line with a playmaker at center and left wing. That's my cat, Ash. Hi. And it's going to be bonkers to think about. Another one of our prospects is Zachary Bolduc. Bolduc had almost 100 points last year in the QMJHL, Quebec League. He is probably not ready for the league, but I think he's a first round pick a few years ago. I think he's going to crack the league in the next few years, and he could be big, so keep your eye on him. His highlights are great. They're so good. Look them up. They're great. The whole 55 goals that season, amazing. Tanner Dickerson has a lot of good upside, but I still think he's a few years from the league. But he did have 47 points in only 35 games last year in the OHL. So he's over a point per game. So if he can get to the level of playing in the NHL, he could be a good third or fourth line option, maybe even more. You also have Matthias Lafayette. I'm saying that very wrong, but I don't know French. If it was Italian, maybe. He's an RFA at the end of the year, so we kind of need to see what he's got, right? We need to see some proving ground. But with that, he's an effective player, young and defensively minded. He's probably going to get a two-way contract for around $800,000, $900,000 at the end of the year. And I think Berube is going to love him if he cracks the lineup. I just do. He's got that kind of fight in him. Will Bitton. We got him last year in a trade, and he was great in the playoffs for the Thunderbirds. He had 21 points, 8 of those goals, 13 assists. He's only 24. Gonna need to get himself into the NHL in the next few years to prove himself, so he can get that contract extension. But I think he has some good upside, and definitely keep an eye on Bitton. Matt Pekka, you may recognize that name. He's a great deep depth piece. He's probably not an AHL regular. I could see him, being effective in the AHL and covering for some injuries in the middle of the year. Probably you're going to see him come up whenever there's injuries to help, bolster the line. Kind of take on what Dakota Joshua was last year, which we sorely missed Dakota Joshua. Then you have Klim Kostin. Klim Kostin is an enigma inside of a riddle. I look at Klim Kostin, I look at his numbers, his height, his weight, the way he plays, and I go, this guy's going to be good. But he's had chances at the NHL. He's had games. He got so many more games last year, got a real chance to show himself, and I just didn't see anything. I wasn't wowed. He got plenty of penalty minutes, which, not. Luckily he's not on a penalty kill, but still. I just wish there was more there, and I think he's going to really need to prove himself. He's definitely going to get some time in the lineup in the NHL this year, guaranteed. But unless he proves himself to be really effective, I don't know how. Unless he proves himself to be really effective, I don't know if he's going to get an extension. No matter what, if it's with us or someone else, he's going to be signing only a one-way contract next time for probably $1.25 for 3 or 4 years. I just don't think it's going to be with the Blues. One of my favorite prospects is Hugh McGing. Now, admittedly, he's not really flashy, but I love him. You aren't going to see him in the NHL for a couple years, but I love him. His name alone is just awesome. I want to have it on a jersey. If I ever get a Springfield Thunderbirds jersey, it's going to be a McGing jersey. He is effective utility. He can play pretty much any spot on the ice as a forward. He's defensively minded. He's got a good shot. It's not the best. But I think when he comes up to the NHL, which he will, he's going to be a great player. He's not going to be fantastic. He's not going to be a top 6, but he's going to be great. You might have heard of the Martin Ferk signing. So this is not necessarily a prospect because he's played in the NHL. He's 28 years old. But I think he's going to be a good depth piece. And I think he just has a lot to offer as a 7th or 8th man. And I mean, especially after an offseason where the Blues and Red Wings pretty much traded rosters, it'll be interesting to see what he can do on it for us. On the defensive side of the prospects, you have Matt Kessel. First off, last name Kessel, you know he's going to be good. Probably wants that Coke on the bench and get some couple glizzies. But I just want you to keep an eye on this kid, okay? He's a 5th-round pick, and he's very good for a 5th-round pick. I mean, he's killing it for a 5th-rounder. A solid right-side defender, which is rare. Like, if you can get a right-handed defender, keep him. Those guys are not all the way over in the league. They're starting to be a little more regular, but you got to keep them. I think he can improve to be a solid second pair guy. So in the next few years, you're going to hear the Kessel name. I want him to have a number in the 80s just so he can have the same number as Phil Kessel. Another defensive name you're going to want to know is Tyler Tucker. He's solid defensively. He played great in the playoffs for the Thunderbirds. He might even see a little action this year in the NHL if we see some injuries on defense. Right now, Scandella and Mikkola are going to switch off as the 7th D. But if we get more injuries, he's going to come up, I think, and you're going to get a good taste of what this guy can do. Another one we're going to look at is Brady Lyle. He's definitely not NHL ready, right? He hasn't got enough licks at the AHL. He hasn't got any looks at really playing with people who are already better than him. But I think he's got a lot of upside. And he's got speed, he's got size, and he's a good shooter. I mean, he is an offensive right side D-man. Once again, if you can get yourself a right side D-man, keep him. And especially if they're good. Another person who's probably not really a prospect because he's played enough in the league, but Scott Perunovich. We got a good look at him last year, and he did all right in the playoffs. I think Doug and Chief like this guy. I think he plays a big game, even though he's undersized for a D-man. He plays fast and to the puck. He'll go into the corners. He'll stand inside of the passing lanes, take a few pucks to the face if he needs to. This guy is solid. If we don't see Tyler Tucker take on 7th D when injuries happen, because they are going to happen, you'll see Perunovich for sure. I do think he's better than Scandella. So, when contract comes around, keep that in mind, Blues. You're probably going to have to pay him around $3 million because that's what you paid Scandella. Now, as far as goalies go, we all know right now the starter is Bennington. I believe in Bennington. I think last year was kind of slow. I think he had, just signed a contract jitters, right? And I think this year he's got an idea of where his confidence is, and I think he's going to play a lot better. I don't think Greiss is going to have to play that much, as long as we don't see an injury. Now, as far as prospects go for goal, we've got Vadim Zarenko. He's Russian. He is solid. He was playing in the minor leagues over there in Russia in the VHL, averaging about a .918, which is great, considering he's very young and playing against men in that league. It'll be a few years till we get a good look at this guy. He'll probably still be playing in Liga there in Sweden. But in a couple years, you might see him starting to dip his toe in the NHL. We get some backup calls, maybe in a few starts. Now, the prospect you all know of goal is Joel Hofer. He looked okay in his 2 games last year. You got to ignore the save percentage. You got to ignore the save percentage and goals against. It was his first time in the men's league, right? But he did absolute work in the playoffs for Springfield. He will be getting a lot of time to shine in the AHL this year and probably prove his way into a backup spot by next year. I am going to miss Chucky, right? The sideburns alone, I was a big fan. I actually did get to see him play one game. He was fabulous. I think it was the Montreal Canadiens game, and we destroyed them, and the Canadian national anthem. Never forget, guys, if you're going to sing an anthem, know the words to the anthem. And if you're going to do it in French, why? Why? But I loved Chucky, and I'm hoping he gets plenty of reps over in Washington, and I hope he does well. But Hofer is going to be good. Give him a year or two. He'll be a backup for Bennington. He'll be solid. I believe in this kid. So that's it. I didn't think I'd be doing it all in one video, but I decided that I didn't really have much to say on the prospects besides just little notes. I encourage you to look at some highlights. I'm gonna put a link in the description to Cap Friendly and to Daily Faceoff, who helped me get these images up. I think you're gonna see a good squad. Unfortunately, we're in the same division as Colorado, so I don't think we're gonna win the division. But I don't think we're gonna have to be a wild card team. You're probably looking at another year of Colorado, St. Louis on the top 2. You're probably looking at another year of Colorado and St. Louis in the top 2. I will do a whole thing about what I think is going to happen with every team. I'm going to get that compiled. We're going to look at what team is going to do well, what team is not going to do well, Arizona, and how that's going to affect the playoff looks. I'm going to make some predictions, pick a winner for the Stanley Cup, and if you have any questions, I'll field those as well. Well, anyway, that's all. Thank you for listening. Go Blues!